to memory lane with you. Take me back to hours of fun with you.
It's time for the Pop Culture Classics Podcast, a celebration of the all-time favorites and the people who brought them to life on TV, film, stage, theme parks, and recordings.
We take off our hats to you, so let's bring on the show.
We're glad you've joined us. And now your host for Pop Culture Classics, Greg Ehrbar.
Thank you, Kenny Woods. Today's guest is KATHRYN Leigh Scott, a woman with 3 names and 2 major careers. She is a writer, not in the, she's an actor who dabbles in writing. She has a shelf of books, a publishing company, and one of the pioneers of what we're going to be talking about today, the historical side of documenting dark shadows. I want to, first of all, just welcome Ms. KATHRYN Leigh Scott.
Thank you, Greg. That was a lovely introduction.
Well, like so many of us listening, I was watching Dark Shadows back in its day, and then every time it came on, I couldn't resist. My name is Victoria Winters. I'm on a train, and I'd start watching again. The first 2 runs on the Sci-Fi Channel, and of course, the entire DVD series. So that's one of them. But we have actually known each other for several decades.
We go back a very long time. How did we first meet?
Well, it was a phone call about, naturally, your books. And I bought, again, a shelf of them. Hollywood at Your Feet and all the Dark Shadows books. And then your fiction, which I want to talk about because I think you've got some sensational ones. One in particular, I'm waiting for it to be done as a film or a Netflix or something. Down and Out in Beverly Hills, one of my favorites. And you called me about my check. There was some issue with my check, and I didn't know who you were. And then when you said to write it out, and you said K-A-T-H, and I'm like, KATHRYN Leigh Scott. Wow! It's Josette. It's Kitty Soames. It's Maggie Evans. I mean, I knew every single character. And we chatted very nicely for a while. And then when we got off the phone, it was way after, because I'm in Florida. I was at Florida at the time. I'm in California now, but it was 3 hours. And so it was later. It was dark. Nobody was in the office. I ran all around the building just to find somebody to tell. And I was like, you guys won't believe. And I talked to a very nice person who very kindly said, well, that's very nice. Then I got home.
We exchanged a lot of emails after that. I mean, you're really going back about 30 years, am I guessing?
Something like that. Yeah. And we also both worked for Disney at different times. And that's one of the things we talked about.
Now, that's interesting. I have forgotten until the other day. Somebody sent me one of the ads that I did. I did about 60 commercials, both on Disney World, Disneyland. I did them on location at both. But that was fascinating because, Greg, I know this is off topic, but to get from one end of Disney World to the other, you go down into the bowels of Disney World, and that's where all the food gets transported and made, and where all of the characters, make it from one place to the other. Anyway, our guide turned out to be Cinderella. Anyway, she was packing heat. She was security. It was just amazing. There are so many behind the scenes stories of Disneyland and Disney World. I won't write it, but I hope somebody does.
The era that you were involved in that was the era of the big press event. And in Florida, it's not as well known what happened in Florida, but during the gigantic expansion of Disney from the 80s to the millennia, Walt Disney World exploded with growth and activity, and we would have press events that were like the Olympics. I mean, people like you. We had celebrities, we had sports figures, and they were being interviewed simultaneously at all these booths. And I was not only an interview subject, but I also was assigned someone like you were to put them around. It was a great time, but you were also a spokesperson, and I can't remember if it was Jim McCrell or Squire Friedel who was...
Jim
McCrell.
Yep.
He was on Celebrity Sweepstakes, and he was with you on promos back when Disney Channel was subscription only, and you were encouraging viewers to subscribe on a free weekend.
Right. I did at least 60 of those. Was it in the 80s? It was a long time ago. The one that I saw, I was wearing big shoulder pads, so I'm guessing.
Yeah. And so you were one of the pioneers of that. You've done so many things. Now, let's bookend this with Plugorama, though, because, and we do get in the weeds, and I enjoy getting into the weeds on things, but we both feel strongly, and no one could more than you because, you are part of it. But this is the 60th anniversary of Dark Shadows. And that is such a milestone that there is a load of things going on.
First of all, I'm getting very nostalgic about it. And I've been mentioning this lately, a bit emotional because, 60 years ago, I was in the very first show that was broadcast, June 27th, 1966. But that was also the beginning of my acting career. Dark Shadows was the beginning of the careers of several of us, including Alexandra Molka, with whom I did my very first scene that day. So I'm really excited about the things that we've got coming up. First of all, the Dark Shadows Festival. We are celebrating the Dark Shadows Festival on July 31st to August 2nd. And it's at the Westin Los Angeles Airport Hotel, right near the airport on Century Boulevard. We still have registration open. So all you have to do is go to Eventbrite and look up Dark Shadows 60th Anniversary, and you can register. There are just a few tickets left for the luncheon on Saturday, but otherwise registration is very much open. And Jim Pearson,
Yes.
friend to Dark Shadows forever, has made a list here of the guests. David Selby, Kate Jackson, Roger Davis, Jerry Lacey, Marie Wallace, James Storm, Lisa Richards, Sharon Smith. That's only some of them. Donna Wandry, I think Donna McKechnie. There are so many coming, and I'm thrilled about it because I get to see them. And we've got so many fans who've been watching the show since they ran home from school to watch. I think that's you, Greg.
It is.
And I've published a book. Again, I said I would never do another one because I did return to Cullenwood on our 50th anniversary. But to celebrate the 60th, I've done Dark Shadows Legacy, but not alone. This time I did the book with screenwriter John Logan, who has become such a great friend. And he is one of those kids who ran home from school. He's a super fan. John and I have been working on the book for this past year. And the book is on Amazon, but of course we will be at the festival and we will be signing it. I just have my copy. So it is 3 pounds, 259 pages. And this beautiful cover was done by the illustrator Mark Maddox. And I'm just so happy with this. If this is the final book that I publish, I'm very happy because I'm very proud of it.
Oh, I know we don't have video here, and I'll post at least the image online, but the book is about the size of an album cover.
That's right.
If you imagine a record album that weighs a lot more.
The size is 11 by 10. It's hardcover. It's a coffee table book. We've printed the book on really wonderful paper, and it's a beauty. So I think people will really treasure it.
There's other commemorative things. There is I think, compilation of some of the radio dramas.
Yes, there is that. There is also a book that Jim Pearson has done, and it's called Dark Shadows Noir. And as the title suggests, it's classic black and white photographs from the very beginning of the show. A lot of the photographs actually were taken by my boyfriend at the time, Ben Martin, who is a Time Life photographer and used to come over and take photographs because the Time Life building wasn't that far from the studio. So we've got all of these, some never before published photographs. Jim is the archivist, and he has been scouting these pictures for the last 40 years. So he's got quite a collection. I'm thrilled that he's done the book.
We can't say enough about Jim Pearson. He has done with this phenomenon. So much. The videos, the DVDs, the different products. And if you go to an event, Jim is almost like a blur because he's everywhere. And plus he has an adorable little dog named Bongo who will.
That's right. Jim is everywhere, and we would not have had all of these festivals. In the beginning, they were started by a woman named Barbara Pfister-Lilts, and there were a number of other Dark Shadows fans who worked with her. But then Jim came in, and I think we've been doing these festivals now since 1983 on opposite coast. One year New York, the other year Los Angeles. I think we experimented once, did one, I think, somewhere in Chicago or somewhere. But these festivals are attended by literally thousands of Dark Shadows fans. So we're going to have a big turnout when we have ours at the end of July in LA.
Yeah, and it's an event not to be missed. I've been to them before, and there's so many wonderful sections. First of all, if you want Dark Shadows merchandise, besides the things we mentioned, it's there. All of the books, James Storm had a CD. I bought that because he sings. You can take your album and go from table to table and get your Dark Shadow soundtrack signed. That's what I did. KATHRYN is like a library on wheels because there are stacks of books all around her, and it'll be nearly impossible to resist them all. And you get to see these people either again because they're old friends, or my goodness, I'm meeting Reverend Trask. I'm meeting what was Marie Wallace's
Crazy Jenny.
Crazy Jenny. Yes, and Megan Todd and all these, every
Yeah.
single one of these actors, because Dark Shadows was unique in that it was this stock company doing almost this unfolding fairy tale.
Yeah, we did a lot of time traveling. So Maggie Evans, my character on the very first episode, soon became Josette DuPres, the unrequited love of the vampire. And that was in the 1790s. And then Rachel Drummond in the 1800s, a governess, and then a kind of high flying, I think she might have been a bit of a grifter, Kitty Soames. Again in the 1800s. So I played four characters. I was the first to play a second character, and then everybody did, even Joan Bennett. And of course, Nancy Barrett played several different characters.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled that Kate Jackson is coming.
Yeah.
He was another graduate of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And she was, I think, a year behind me, if I'm not mistaken. And she came on the show as Daphne Harridge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So the other thing this year that we're doing, we haven't done this before. We've invited several of the actors who were in the 1991 NBC primetime iteration of Dark Shadows.
Oh.
I just spoke to Joanna Going yesterday. Joanna will be there. Let me see. I think maybe Barbara Steele. And
Barbara Steele. She's the queen of sci-fi.
She's a neighbor of mine in LA.
Oh, wow.
So Barbara Steele will be there, and that'll thrill so many people because what an amazing career she's had. And we'll have performances. Of course, there'll be autographs. There'll be a Q&A. And of course, that whole weekend, we get a chance to talk to everybody.
It's an extraordinary experience, and we all have this history together. When they do revivals, it depends on your opinion. They're quite wonderful in their way. To me, that series was, if you guys had the budget to do it, that's what it would have looked like on NBC. Also a fine cast giving their own spin on the characters. I think it was cut short. It wasn't because it wasn't doing well, or maybe it was Desert Storm.
It was, it was the war.
Yeah.
1991. And as a matter of fact, to Dan Curtis's chagrin, the war started that night, and everybody was listening to Wolf Blitzer talk about the war, and they had no audience. They screened maybe 3 or 4, 5. I was living in London at the time, and as a matter of fact, I was filming. And I heard the sad news that, the show went off the air. But it was really good. Gene Simmons playing the Joan Bennett role, and Joanna Going playing the Victoria Winters role. It was just really quite wonderful. And then, of course, I was so thrilled. Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, who are both fans of the show, I guess, ran home from school to watch it, invited Jonathan Frid, David Selby, Laura Parker, and me, because we starred in the two MGM feature films. Jonathan Frid and I did House of Dark Shadows, and then Selby and Parker did Night of Dark Shadows. So the four of us were invited over to Pinewood Studios in England to film cameos in the 2012 version of Dark Shadows, which was really generous of them. Usually the people who originate these roles are, just forgotten intentionally. To be intentionally remembered is really a treat.
It's a huge compliment. Sometimes Hollywood can forget. It says a lot about them that they did this.
Yes,
for you folks.
I've always been grateful to them. I have a kind of a soft spot for both of them. They couldn't have been nicer, and it was just a genuine pleasure.
Well, let's just hope, because now there's rumblings about Warner Brothers doing an animated version.
They are going to do an animated version, and what I'm really delighted about, and this is largely thanks to Kathy and Tracy Curtis, the daughters of Dan Curtis. This has been in the works for a while, and I am delighted about it. And there is still the possibility of a live action reboot of Dark Shadows as well, a primetime limited series. I think we're ripe for that. So I know that's somehow in the works.
Appropriately, it's an eternal thing. So there you go. So we've covered all of that, and that is very, very exciting. Let's go back, as I often like to say. You have loved to write since you were a child, and your name was not originally KATHRYN LEIGH SCOTT. It was KATHRYN.
Oh, my family name is Kringstad, which is a Norwegian name. It actually is the name of a little town in Norway, right near where my father comes from.
But the Lee came from.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, I love the story. I love the.
Oh, right. Well, the story is that my very first job, and it was literally weeks before Dark Shadows, it was a hairspray commercial for Respond. And of course, I could then join Screen Actors Guild.
Jennifer Ann got hers free. So did Cindy, Joan, and Elsie. Why don't you get one free, too? It's new Respond refillable purse-size hairspray. Yours free when you buy new Respond, the special protein formula hairspray. Just look how easy the purse-size spray refills. And with Respond's secret hold, you never feel as if you've sprayed at all. Buy new special protein formula Respond. Get your purse-size spray free.
I went in to sign up in person, the only way you could back in the day, and I gave my name, KATHRYN Kringstad, which I quite a decent name. And the agent who sent me up, and she was hard of hearing, said, What's your name? And I said, KATHRYN Kringstad. And she said, what? Anyway, there was a box of Scott tissues on her desk, and she was talking to the casting director, and she said her name is KATHRYN Scott. Well, I got the job, and when I went into Screen Actors Guild, I got the job in the name KATHRYN Scott. The woman at Screen Actors Guild said, there's another actress named KATHRYN Scott. She's in her 70s. And she said, so you need like a middle name. And before I could say anything, Vivian Lee was doing Tavarit on Broadway. And this woman at Screen Actors Guild was such a fan. She said, Lee should be your middle name. So my name was made up by this deaf agent and the lady behind the counter at Screen Actors Guild. That's how I got my name. And I've always said, thank God that, the agent didn't have a box of Kleenex on her. I would have been KATHRYN Kleenex.
Yeah. So were you bitten by the acting bug or the writing bug first?
They were twin careers from the very beginning. My mother had an old plunkety-plunk typewriter. It was a Smith Corona, I guess it was. I think I must have been about 7 when I found that. And I would just start plunking away. Anyway, in the 2nd grade, I wrote a play about George Washington. And I gave all the good lines to Martha Washington, who fought off the whole British contingent in Mount Vernon. Anyway, I gave Martha the good lines and all of the good action. Wow. We performed that little thing for the entire 2nd grade class. 3 different classrooms of kids. And I got my first taste of what that was like, looking out and seeing all of these faces and looking at you, smiles on them. And I think that was the beginning. I think I've been a writer and an actor ever since. I was in every play all through grade school, junior high, high school, college. And then I was terribly lucky. At the age of 16, I got a scholarship to go to Northwestern University for their summer program. And I was absolutely immersed in theater. And that same summer, I interviewed Carl Sandburg for the school newspaper, and I won awards in both things. I think I got most of my scholarships in theater, drama. And I think that's why, acting took precedence there for a while. But I've never stopped writing. And I'm still writing. I write for AARP The Ethel. I've written for the Daily Beast and for Fangoria and, so many different publications. Opera News. I wrote an investigative piece about Birgit Nilsson, the great Swedish soprano. The longest piece that Opera News had published. And now that I'm 83 and I'm at this point in my life, I thought, I've got so many pieces that are no longer in any publication. And I just kind of rounded them all up. And I've had a book published by Cumberland, and it's called Reflections, A Life in Writing. Oh, it's everything that I've written over the last 60, 65 years. Just carefully curated, sort of decade by decade. And I'm really excited that on Amazon, it was a bestseller in 3 categories. How about that?
Wow.
So you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy all of my books on Amazon, but you can also buy it on my website, and then I can sign it for you. My website is my name, KATHRYNLEIGHSCOTT.com.
Yes, and there's a lot on there, including you can sign up for the newsletter so you know what's going on. You can access all the different books. It's a very, as they would say, rich content website.
I only wrote nonfiction for 40 years. And then when my husband was really ill, my husband, Jeff Miller, and I was a caregiver, and I would sit next to him with my laptop open. And when he was napping, I would start to write. I wrote my first fiction in 2011, and that was Dark Passages.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a book that I always wanted to write because I took everything I know about dark shadows, all of the things that I couldn't say in nonfiction. It's a spoof, a satire, but it's also very true to what happened and a very fictionalized kind of maybe over the top handling of what it's like to do live television with a plot line that involves vampires. I had a lot of fun doing it because I made the ingenue lead from a family of vampires. I thought, wouldn't that be fun? And there she is, kind of embarrassed about playing this vampire character that has no semblance to what a real vampire is like. And that was fun to write, to create your own brand of vampire. I had a lot of fun with that. So I've written now 6 novels, and they're all very different. A couple of mysteries and sort of mainstream women's fiction. And that's been a lot of fun. And the whole time I was doing that, I was also, writing nonfiction or journalistic pieces for magazines.
It's pretty extraordinary. And I mentioned this at the beginning as one of the books that stands out for me. And I think about a lot since I've moved. It's my 10-year anniversary living in California and becoming an Angelino and doing that thing Saturday Night Live says is everybody who gets together talks about. I took the 405 to the 101 and the 60. Everybody really does that. But there is an issue, to be a little serious here, there is an issue with what they now call the unhoused. It is a problem that needs to be addressed, and I don't know what the answer is, but you wrote in Down and Out in Beverly Hills,
Yep.
little shoes, you wrote about a very unique, I guess you would say, subculture of performers, of personalities, of former sitcom stars, of people who are the best they can maintaining their persona, their look, their tattered costumes, their, a public restroom is where they do their grooming, but making appearances in malls and at trying to do it was unforgettable. And
I wish that that could be made into a series.
yes,
I'm very proud of that. For many years, when I was living in Beverly Hills, I attended All Saints Episcopal Church. And all of the churches along Santa Monica Boulevard, and there are four of them, treat the homeless to a midday meal. And Episcopal Church, All Saints, had Mondays. And we went all out. It was a three-course meal with, salads and bread and a wonderful main course, and then desserts. It was a big meal. We also assisted with bus tokens and referrals to various programs. I mean, we had a huge turnout every Monday. We set the tables. We had magazines on the tables. It was really, may I say, elegant. And the Methodist and the Presbyterian and the Catholic Church, Good Shepherd had Fridays. And anything left over from our Monday meal went to the Methodist Church. It's really quite wonderful. And this still goes on. I was always fascinated by the women that came because, this was Beverly Hills, and there were several women that showed up really beautifully groomed and very well dressed. And you wondered why they were there. And then every once in a while, you would notice something like a bit of an anger management problem or something. Or you would notice a frayed cuff, and when I was handing out all of the free toiletries, they were choosy. And then I realized, because I happened to see the car that one of them was living in, and it was parked in a Ralph's parking lot, and I recognized her. And that was the beginning of wanting to write a book about a woman who has everything. She's an actor with fame, and because of a husband who turns out to be a con artist, she's finally found the love of her life, and it turns out to be a con artist. She loses everything, but she keeps up appearances, living in a car. I did a bit of research. One night, I parked right in front of Aaron Spelling's house. I thought that was appropriate in that wonderful little park, And I thought, can I make it through the night? I'm sorry to say that I made it to, I think it was 11:15, because is there anything scarier? You've got your doors locked, but a car drives a little bit slowly past yours, and the shadows get longer from the street lights and the sounds of night. Oh, you're not going to be able to sleep. And I drove home at 11:15. I just couldn't do it. And it taught me a lot. I was a Girl Scout for 12 years. I know so much about primitive camping and so on. And I used everything that I knew because I realized how much my character had to be resourceful. So I wrote 2 books, Down and Out in Beverly Hills and Jinxed. And this is a very real thing. Yes, in Beverly Hills, we have our homeless, and they live with dignity, and they do try their best, and they're incredibly resourceful. And when they find a safe parking space, they don't tell anybody. So I did a tremendous amount of research without ever intruding on the people that came to All Saints. I never made it known that I was kind of, doing research. I was very careful about that. So I'm very proud of those books. Thanks for bringing them up, Greg.
Oh, I'm telling you, all of us who live out here have these encounters, whether it's from the car, somebody holding a sign, or just shopping in the shopping center near us. You get to know some of these people. There's a guy I wave hello to every time, and he's actually reading Bible verses to people. He's there all the time.
There's Bill who has attention deficit. I see him all the time. And there's also the woman in the wheelchair who propels herself entirely with her feet and never uses wheels. There's so many of them that I knew, when I was actually living there, and that when I go back, I still see.
Yeah, and it's not something that we can just say, oh, well, if only, then this would solve it because it's a bigger problem than that. But just like every other group of people, they're all individuals and there's all kinds of people. And sometimes there, but for the grace of God, go us. Sometimes it's mental illness, sometimes it's addictions, but sometimes it's just circumstance. And one of the things we did with our children, I got this idea from Steve Guttenberg, because he said, I think to Merv Griffin, he would go into the park and hand out sandwiches. What we would do, and this is very inexpensive, is you get little lunch bags, and the cheese and crackers are the peanut butter crackers, and one of those sip things you put the straw in, and a can of Vienna sausages, and a napkin, and everything there can last. And whenever you see someone and encounter someone, everybody wants food. So it's like everybody gets hungry. So that was a way of, okay, we don't know necessarily where the cash is going to go, but the food's necessary. And you would not believe some of the reactions to that.
I know. It's lovely. And now that I'm living in New York, I hand out socks.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Socks.
Because it gets tremendously cold. Or what else you can do is in New York, it's very easy because every corner has those small markets where you can go to the steam table or and you can fill a tray. And again, it's inexpensive, and you see somebody, and I'll occasionally at convenience stores too, you'll see somebody and it's like you go in, you get something. That is just a small thing to do. It's very small, but
I have also learned to say, do you have any dietary problems? Because there are people that do not eat gluten. There are people that do not eat meat or pork or whatever. I now avoid those embarrassing situations where I hand somebody a sandwich and they look at me hungry.
Oh, that's important to remember.
Yeah, it's really I guess you like me you become sensitive to these things, and you try to find a way to do your thing. Yeah, I don't give money.
Downtown Hollywood, as you well know, Hollywood Boulevard, it isn't the spiffiest. It's not like Disney Hollywood Studios in Orlando where it's spotless. It is pretty earthy would be the word, and there's a lot of musicians, people lying on the street, and all. So, folks, I don't want to burst bubbles, but
there's also a wonderful place down on at the end of Sunset. I can't remember the address now; it's been a while. But the neighborhood place, and that's for young people who age out of foster care. I used to go there because there's always somebody celebrating a birthday, so you bring a cake. You just show up with a cake. And no drugs, no guns, that's the rule. But otherwise, this is a safe haven for young people. And they have clothing there because, so you're going out for a job interview, there's clothing. They have bags of new underwear and socks. It's an extraordinary place. For an example, there was a young woman there who was studying nursing. And she was couch surfing. Every night she was sleeping on a different couch. And she would meet, and sometimes because the place is open, you just find people sleeping with their head down on the table. But it's quite a wonderful place. It's called my neighborhood place, something like that. You'll find it.
There are things you can do, large and small, whatever you can afford, whatever time you can spare. And that concludes our public service announcement. But the book should be dramatized because I don't think people realize you hear stories, again, about young people who got a series way too young. You hear stories about a third lead on a sitcom or a lead on a sitcom or somebody who won a major award and all. And something just happened, and on Shirley Jones' book, Shirley Jones talked about when she and Jack Cassidy were having financial troubles, but you got to hang on to your house if you can. You got to hang on to your car if you can, because you don't want to send the message out that you're unhireable or you have any problems. So the struggle to maintain a facade is huge.
Yeah, it is.
We talked about the fact that they had you all in the Dark Shadows movie, the Tim Burton, Johnny Depp one, and the fact that that was a very kind thing with artists of a certain age. And there's a tendency sometimes in show business to forget that. But it's not a death sentence. Some things are better, some things are worse, but it's not the end. And you just got married in your 80s. It was in the New York
I
Times.
was 81, yeah. I got married wait, no, I guess I was 82. My husband's 81. We got married last year. My husband passed away not, 15 years ago. And Patrick's wife passed away, I guess it's now 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. So we met 8 years ago, and we decided after, living together for 7 years, and now we bought a house together and kind of consolidated things. We should get married. And it was wonderful. The New York Times did a terrific story. They got in touch about 3 weeks after we got married and asked if we'd had a professional photographer. We said yes, and they interviewed us, which was fun. I think it's kind of a novelty.
Hey, people are also having children later because life
Yeah,
is
we're not 81.
complicated. No, I know that. I'm not saying that's not a hint, but
Not on my bucket list.
no, no, but it's true because life has gotten complicated and young people have to figure out their lives and it takes a while. It's a complex world and our whole world is changing with AI and all that kind of stuff. So there's always
And,
challenges.
and there are so many things that are changing. And we have friends uh, who have children in their 30s still living at home because they've got wonderful educations and so on, but finding a job and being able to afford to live somewhere. So it's just more complicated. I often think about, we know a number of people who have children who are, were in college studying acting and so on during COVID. And there they were, rehearsing over Zoom, and then they graduate. And even though there are so many platforms, so many streaming places, for shows, it doesn't feel like there's as much work as there was when we had, when I started out, 3 broadcast networks and live theater and film, of course. That was it. It was a fairly small pool. That's not the case anymore. And it really worries me about AI. It really does. Fans send me things proudly, where they've taken a photograph of me, something that Ben Martin took, who is a superb photographer, and they manipulate it with AI, or they put me into videos. I mean, there's Maggie Evans in Mel's Diner, but it gets really unfunny. I'm a litigant in the Anthropic case. I know my books have been downloaded and they're part of the AI teaching tool. I was also, as a publisher, part of that, and an author, part of that Authors Guild case. And that was a good number of years ago when Microsoft or Google said you had to opt out. Otherwise, your books were going to be downloaded for free. Well, they did that anyway. And it's so frustrating now because just today I heard that, you have to opt out of this new thing that Mark Zuckerberg has. Shouldn't you need to opt in? Why are they putting the burden on us to opt out? Is that fair? And I know how long it takes to write a book. For me, when I was writing nothing but nonfiction, months to a year to do research and another year to write, and then another year or so to wait for your publisher to put the book between covers. I know how long it takes. I know what goes into it. I know what it takes to be an actor. And it's so frustrating to think that people can do these shortcuts.
Yeah. We actually, besides Disney, share Hanna-Barbera in common because you did do voices there. You're on the end credits of things. I love stopping and going, oh, look who's in there. And gosh, was it Fonz and the Happy Days Gang or Scooby-Doo or something? Oh my gosh, it's KATHRYN LEIGH SCOTT. I did a book on Hanna-Barbera and it took 5 years. This is one of those things, just like the issue we talked about, specifically people, the unhoused people. I don't know if mainstream entertainment can address it because part of it is a corporate thing. But if it was dramatized, I think some of the people who send you these things don't know what the facts are and think, oh, how fun and how wonderful, and this will just delight her. and they innocently don't always understand your fueling.
Are correct. That is exactly it. And we've got the most important thing is to educate people about a lot of people don't understand copyright, they don't understand trademark, they have no idea. It is so easy to get a transcript of a screenplay or whatever. It's so easy to do any of that sort of thing and then use it as a template. Well, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. But to really to understand what that's like, to just plain take something.
Yeah. Let's go back to your illustrious career because it is extremely illustrious. You have worked with the biggest stars in Hollywood on huge projects. This is also, go on the website. You have had a remarkable, sustained career. Why do you think that is?
Oh, I have no idea. So much of it is luck. And I think that one of the best things, and I intuitively knew I needed to do this, when Dark Shadows was at its end, I moved to Europe and I moved to Paris. And I did a couple of films in Paris. I got to work with Alain Resnais directing John Gielgud and David Warner and Dirk Bogarde in a film, Providence, that I was in. There were only, I think, 6 characters. Elaine Stritch was in it, and so was Ellen Burstyn. A phenomenal opportunity to work with a director, a new wave director of that caliber, and to play twins in a French language film. I moved to England and I got to work with Jimmy Stewart on stage doing Harvey and work at the Bristol Old Vic. So there were all of these opportunities instead of going to Hollywood and, I don't know, do what, get a series, to launch a career there. I spent a number of years in Europe. That was the good news and the bad news because, you come back. I came back to do a film with Anthony Quinn called The Greek Tycoon. I almost forgot about that one. I came back to do that. Part of it was filming in New York. And then I got a pilot with Tom Selleck. I did 3 different pilots with Tom Selleck. And then I got a series with Brian Dennehy. So I was going back and forth doing the CBS series with Brian, but also working in England, doing Last Days of Patton with George C. Scott and doing Murrow with Dan Travanti and just an incredible cast of British actors. So the fact that I was doing such a wide range of work instead of just plugging away in Hollywood, I think has not only given me a wonderful career, but it gave me a wonderful life.
Yeah, and you didn't have to worry. Like you said, it was a double-edged sword moving out of the country, but you didn't have to worry so much there about being typecast, which
Not at all. In fact, a lot of one's credits. I mean, when you're working abroad, just don't travel. So I was really starting out fresh when I came out to do that pilot with Tom Selleck. Kate Jackson was already doing a series. David Selby was. So I was late to the game. But on the other hand, I was really pleased with the kinds of roles that I did get. It just made for a much more varied career than if I'd stayed in Hollywood in that period of time. So I'm happy about it. I mean, maybe I don't have the career that I could have had, but that's okay too.
I like to refer to it as the Betty White thing, and that part of longevity has to do with that Betty White thing. Professionalism, knowing your lines, making the set a pleasant place.
Yeah. Well, with you. People, people don't want to work with troubled actors, and it shows up in the end. I've been really lucky. I've worked with an awful lot of good people. There's nobody I can think of that was problematic. Now that's pretty darn lucky.
Yeah. And on Dark Shadows, you had an opportunity, even in that sort of rarefied atmosphere, to stretch and do different things too, as the cast got to do, which is rare in a series.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, well, Joel Crothers had been a bit of a child actor. And of course, David Hennessy had far more credits than most of us who were in 18, 19, 20. But for Alexandra and Nancy, Laura, David Selby, Jimmy Storm, there were so many of us that this was like one of our first jobs. So to be able to work with veteran actors like Joan Bennett, Grayson Hall, Thayer David, Humbert Estrado, Clarice Blackburn. I mean, these were really exceptional actors. And Mitch Ryan, of course, I think was one of my very favorites. And you had to meet their standard. You just had to be alert on top of your own game as you were learning. It was just an incredible experience. And then to play essentially costume drama and to play these sort of larger than life characters. That's amazing when you're straight out of drama school.
Yeah.
What a treat. What a treat.
Therein lies part of the appeal. First of all, the serialized format can't be duplicated without another serial because it moved at almost a real-time pace, which is what soaps do. They stretch a story and then they have like other overlapping stories to keep you going. There's a lot of expository dialogue. I have such respect for how the writers did this, the technique of how they did it. So that's one of the things that makes people so close to it. You kind of live it with the characters over all those years. And soaps in general have that. There is a reality inherent in a serial. Now they have arcs on other shows, but day to day, 5 days a week, that's pretty powerful in your home every day. You know what I mean?
Yes, and when you can start fresh every day, whatever you screwed up the day before, you come in the next day and you're starting fresh. And that's also a good thing for a young actor to experience.
And it's a delightful thing to watch now also because of its modest budget and the fact that you were working live on tape, could not edit in those days. So the famous bloopers are great because if you watch game shows from that era, Gene Rayburn kicked the set on Match Game just to see what it would do. I mean, you could do things like that. Everything is heavily edited and very smooth now. But to see something that it feels very real, to see something that has a fly on Jonathan Frid's nose, and we quote those things because Lord knows my family, I don't know if it's by force or by choice, they've lived through these. So we have certain phrases, and one of them is Barnabas saying,
"That night must go, nothing wrong."
Right.
you know,
In the early days, there was one line that we all had to kind of practice because we were saying it all the time. Who's been tampering with the bleeder valve on Uncle Roger's? We all had to say that, the bleeder valve on Uncle Roger's, but we didn't even know what we were talking about. I don't know what a bleeder valve is. I don't know if it existed, but it was one of those lines that everybody screwed up time and again. You'd find an actor standing before going on saying, bleeder valve.
And I don't know that there was anyone, and we're talking about top, Grayson Hall, Oscar nominee, people who were in many stage plays. I mean, you had David Ford, who was in 1776. He's in the movie, too. This is an incredible cast. I don't think there was anyone that was immune from a flub here and there.
Oh, God, no, especially David Ford. And here's the thing. If you have to do a series of names, or you have to come up with names are the worst. A lot of those flubs had to do with coming up with a name.
I just want to share with you a couple of Maggie things that I always liked. And, everybody has personal moments who watch the show and things they quote. Besides,
"That night must go, nothing wrong."
First of all, my favorite scenes with Maggie, I don't know that anyone else would pick this one, but it was a 60s show. So the women were more perils of Pauline. They said that in TV Guide, more perils than Pauline. So there wasn't as much of the woman goes with the man to solve the problem. It's like, you stay here where it's safe and I'll go do that. Maggie was a victim, but she was smart and she did the best she could under the almost impossible, powerful circumstances with Barnabas to try to get out in any way possible. And one of my favorite scenes is where she starts telling Willie that she's becoming Josette.
I got restless. I wanted to walk the grounds.
Now, you can't do that until after tonight.
Well, why not? I'm the mistress here. Why should I be treated like a prisoner?
I suppose you tell me exactly who you are.
Are you being insolent?
Maggie?
How dare you call me such a crude, common name?
I'm sorry, I meant Josette.
I think Madam Collins would be more appropriate.
Fine with me, madam.
That's better. Now, I would like to walk the grounds.
And I thought, that's what any of us would do. Let's let them think they got me. Let me try. And then Willie sees through it. But I thought, ooh, I love that scene.
Yeah, I do too. And my husband's favorite scene is where I pick up that steak and I'm, she was pretty feisty. And the other really nice thing about working in a series format is that the writers get to know you and they work to your strengths. I mean, I was not an easy fit for the Maggie that existed in the very first episode. I really wasn't. And I worked really hard to find that character. But then as you're on the show for a while, they start writing for what you do best. It happens always. And by the time I was really playing Josette and Maggie, but especially Maggie, after Jonathan came on the series, that was really fun because I feel like I came into my own. And I think that they drew on, because I'm fairly resourceful. And I think they picked up on that and they made Maggie resourceful. This was the gal who had been dragging pops out of the Blue Whale drunk for years, a girl who had no mother, a girl working in the Collinsport diner, which was right next to the train tracks. And she was constantly seeing people coming and going, and she was not coming and going. She was stuck there and wanted more from life. And I think that kind of yearning and that kind of adventurous nature, resourcefulness, I think they started writing that into the Maggie that I really loved playing.
Yeah, it's interesting that Maggie, as all of us fans know, started out as this gum-snapping, tough-talking Eve Arden waitress that says, "You're a jerk, you're a jerk."
Beg your pardon. Jerk. Jerk. Well, thanks. Don't mention it.
And then, in a relatively short time, not that anything on the soap is relatively short, but you're Deborah Carr in Turn of the Screw.
Yeah, right. I am. I'm Deborah Carr in Turn of the Screw. And that was when David Selby came on the show about a year in. But the big change came when I happened to come to the studio one day when Dan was there, and he was very seldom there. And he said, "You've got long, dark hair." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Why are you wearing that short blonde wig?" And I said, "Because you thought that I looked too much like Victoria Winters. You wanted me to wear a wig?" And he had forgotten about that. And when he saw me in the long dark hair, he said, "Okay, well, you're not wearing that wig today." And Leela Swift, who was the director, said, "You can't do that, Dan. You can't do that. She can't be blonde one day and have long dark hair the next day." And he said, "Yeah, the audience will go along with it." Well, they did, because it's exactly what happened. So there was a big change in who Maggie was once she lost the blonde wig and walked around in this ponytail. I mean, the ponytail Maggie is a very different gal.
Yeah. And she is feisty and resourceful, and she's generally probing for answers that she usually doesn't get because nobody answers anything. But you are prodding. There's like different kinds of Dark Shadows characters. There's the people who are at the center of the supernatural, the Barnabases and the Julias and Angelique. Then there's the people who are betwixt and between, like Maggie, who are always pulled into it. And then there are the people on the periphery who never seem to get into it, and then after the storyline ends, forget it, like Roger and Elizabeth and to a certain degree, even Vicky.
Right.
My other favorite thing, and I'm telling you, we quote it all the time when we're talking about how are you. You didn't exactly say this, but when Maggie was in the situation of under Barnabas's bite, on the neck, and the Dr. Woodard was taking care of her in the room, and she was terrified at night, and she'd go off and all. And that was very good acting because it was a different Maggie in the daytime than in the nighttime. It was hysterical, angry, nasty Maggie at night. But in the daytime, it was the KATHRYN LEIGH SCOTT we saw on the Disney Channel. It was like, "But I feel fine." It was like a jovial person. I feel fine. So when I told my wife I was going to be interviewing you, she says, "Oh, then see if she feels fine." We can't help it. Whenever we talk about how we feel, it's just I feel fine comes
I know. I know.
I know that's a fan musing. One of the times you had a Dark Shadows event, Bob Cobert was there.
Yes,
And I didn't know he did, or maybe I didn't remember he wrote the theme to Password in the 60s.
I didn't know that.
He mentioned that, and then there was a Q&A. I'm sorry, folks, if I'm digressing, but there was a Q&A, and I said, I have to tell you this, whether I was at school, at a public function, at home, whenever we changed seats, I would always go, da 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 da, and he burst out laughing. And that's the kind of experience you have when you go to these events. That's why.
By the way, you just said something that is absolutely apropos. The Dark Shadows actors probably listen more than they talk when they're at a festival, because everybody comes up and tells you about their grandmother, about their school day, about how much Dark Shadows meant to them. So very often, we're listening, which is, again, kind of a lovely thing. It gives people a chance to tell that, their their actor that they watched all those years ago, their side of things, which is really kind of nice. It's really lovely. I'm looking forward to the people who are coming to the festival. So many of them, since we've been doing this since 1983, are people that we know. You see them show up with another baby. You see them show up with a new husband or whatever. You get to know them over those 40 years.
Yes, and the phases of their life, because the series takes about, when they were showing 2 a day, it took about 2.5 years to watch the full run. It takes up a period of your life each time.
Yes.
And that is what people are sharing with you. It's got to have a powerful effect on all of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Do the other cast members share that kind of effect?
Oh, yes. What I've just described? Yes, absolutely. I remember Laura Parker, she would sit there and ask questions and listen to the stories. I mean, she was just delightful. I miss her. I mean, I miss so many people now that are no longer with us. I was especially close to Mitch Ryan, Joel Crothers, and Joan Bennett. Those were the people that I really maintained long-term friendships with, certainly with Laura.
It's a really cool experience. And for those who just love television and media, this is something that is a ongoing chunk of our culture. It's really fun to go to this.
Yeah. I'm hoping you're going to be there.
Well, I am too. I have it marked out on my calendar.
Oh, well, please do join us. Please do join us.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's reiterate then. It is at the Westin Los Angeles Airport Hotel. They have discounts on the rooms if you're going to this, and it's from July 31st to August 2nd, the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary celebration. And there's also the books, KATHRYN Leigh Scott's book,
Dark Shadows Legacy, and also Reflections, A Life in Writing. I'll have both books there. And there will be performances. The actors are going to perform scenes. I shouldn't have said that. That was going to be a bit of a surprise. But autographs, Q&A, there'll be screenings, there'll be a memorabilia sale, there'll be an auction. We're going to have a costume contest. And of course, there'll be collectibles in the dealer's room. So there's really a lot going on. And it's Friday, July 31st, and Saturday, August 1st. Those are the 2 big days.
And the book is Dark Shadows Legacy by John Logan and KATHRYN Leigh Scott. There's also Dark Shadows Noir by Jim Pearson. Lots of great stuff. Please attend and visit KATHRYNLeighScott.com for these and other important messages. What can I say except, Josette, don't jump off the cliff. Sorry, I had to do that. Thank you on behalf of all of us, on behalf of my family, my wife sitting through episodes when we were dating. I mean, everybody's life that's connected with this. You all, and you especially, have given so much to us.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to talk to you again. I mean, we've known each other such a long time, so this is lovely. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to Pop Culture Favorites. Thank you for subscribing online and for liking and reviewing. And until next time, this is Greg Garbar saying bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the Pop Culture Classics podcast with Greg Ehrpar. Please join us again, and thanks for listening.